Funny enough, like my dad, for example, yeah, he doesn't know his dad's first name.
Yeah.
So mad. No, this is back then. You don't probably obviously probably grew up in Africa, and they don't say first names anyway.
Yeah.
But I think that to me that's actually a bit crazy. And do you have your father in your life, by the way?
Yes.
And is your father like emotionally there? 'Cause I've got a dad in my life. I don't know. As Africans, I don't know. I don't hug my dad. I don't tell my dad I love you, dad. I don't do all of that.
Exactly. So
That's
he's
a proper F thing, isn't it?
yeah. He's there, and I think a lot of African men, it's like the way they show love is through acts of service. So that whole emotional I love you doesn't exist. I remember one of my friends, he's Yoruba, he's Nigerian as well, and he was with me, he was talking to his dad, and the conversation ended like this: "Love you, dad." I just lost my mind. I'm like, what?
Yeah, he moved to his man.
I'm like,
that was foreign to you.
Yeah, I'm like, because I've known him my whole life. I've known his dad, but I've never heard it before. But this is us as men now.
It's weird though, isn't it? Like, that should be normal.
Yeah, and so he said it, and so I started exploring this idea of what would I, because I wanted to write an article in terms of when was the last time you told your dad you loved him? And I couldn't write the article because I've never actually gone through the process myself. So I said to myself, let me go and actually say this to my dad, and let's see how this works.
But you told me what happened.
I mean, what was your reaction?
I went to the family house and I said it to him, and he was so confused. He didn't understand the words that I was saying. He was like, Emeka, what are you talking about? And I just started laughing.
I said, what are you talking
he
about?
just couldn't.
He's probably thinking at the time like something must be serious.
Yeah, but it's like those words in that context. He knows what love is, but in terms of for me to say it, like, what do you want essentially? Like, do you know what I mean?
Like
It just didn't. So it didn't compute in terms of this is just the way that some people just express.
Even hugging my dad sometimes is a bit mad. Fam.
Yeah.
It's a bit long. I can't, yes. Yeah. My mom all day long. I tell my mom I love her. I think, like I said, I think it actually is important that first of all, it's weird that we can all relate to not being able to have that loving or emotionally. Is it the right words I'm using? Like that emotional relation with your father. Like, I love you, dad. My dad didn't take me to play baseball or play football. My dad put food in my plate. Yeah. And I appreciate him for that. So I think, like I said, the father's important. I think when we go forward as a generation, I think maybe we're a bit more westernized. We'll probably have more love for our children when we go forward. We'll probably be giving hugs to my kids.
I think we're turning soft, man. We had this conversation last time, didn't we?
You're crazy.
No, do you know, I think we're turning soft.
Yeah.
Do you know what it is, like, what you just said, we're getting westernized, basically, innit? Because obviously in Af and in the West, it's like, in West Indies and whatnot, it's like, if I do acts of service, if I do a certain amount, if I provide for you, I am being your father. I'm doing my job. I don't need to necessarily like get pally with you.
You're crazy.
Do you see what I'm saying? But because we live here, now it's a thing.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? Now it's a thing.
But I disagree with you, 100%.
Do you know why? Because like back in like so-called village and that, as long as like you got a place to sleep and you got food and that, you're really raised by the village.
Yeah.
It's not so much like, you know what I'm saying? So you don't have to have this amazing connection with your father.
But it's like children of poverty, you know what I'm saying? Like your parents are unavailable because they have to provide for you and making sure you survive anyway. Yeah. Hence you're raised by the village. But in case now, we're not in the village. People, there's a work-life balance. People can have a conversation with their father and say, yo, dad, love you.
Yeah.
Sounds mad for me to say that as well. But
and then I think when you're talking about that traditional father, especially from back home, when I think about their parenting style, a lot of them parented with fear. And some people mix up fear with respect.
Okay, yeah.
In terms of, you're the breadwinner, I come home, I'm tired, and if there's anything that's wrong, it's like, I'm going to tell your dad. That saying back then is like, it strikes fear in a lot of people, that type of thing. So it's like, you've always been that disciplinarian, and there's no room for me to come and tell you that I'm being bullied, or that I'm failing, or I need help with this particular thing. As you're now transitioning into becoming a man, you're figuring it out. 9 times out of 10, you're talking to your friends about those issues, because we don't do that over here. We don't communicate about that over there. And I remember growing up, most of my conversations with my dad was mainly about football or whatever else was on CNN at that particular time. In terms of politics, we might just chop it up on that, and then that's pretty much it.
What, do you feel like you could open up to him about anything else later on?
What now?
No, like if you wanted to.
Then no. With my mum, definitely. And I think proximity, and obviously he was traveling and business and a lot. But again, it's just that even with some of my friends now, I don't know if it's just a innate male thing in terms of when you feel that level of vulnerability.
It's the innate black thing. I'm telling you.
You think so?
I got white and black friends. No, I got white and black friends. Like, white Donnies would just talk. They'll just open up, say whatever, have that conversation.
I'm on the draw for Jem right now, yeah?
I was drawing them out.
Jem's Turkish, isn't it? Yeah. So, is your dad about? No. Oh, okay. But what do you think about saying I love you to your dad and that? Do you think that's mad? It doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think they've got that same cultural thing as well.
Yeah. Wait, why is it mad?
Because John done it.
Why are you different?
Because he's Latino. It's like, essays, you know what I'm saying?
They've got great love in South America, innit?
Hold on, one second. Is this a problem you have telling him you love him in your adult life? Or when you were young, you said, "Oh, I love you." Even when you were young, because I'm thinking when you're an adult and you become a man yourself, and we get a certain aura, bravado, and that kind of thing. I can understand it being a bit, because even though your dad is your dad, you would have a respect for him, but you have to show you're a man now as well. Yeah, you kind of.
But you do that in your actions.
You kind of spawn from his seed, so you're trying to be like him.
But sorry, I probably disagree with his point of view right now. Yeah, this is the goodness of this podcast. We can.
Yeah.
My thing is, I think you're seeing fatherhood as it stops after you provide certain basics. I think there's more to it.
I'm playing devil's advocate first.
Oh, is it? Okay.
It's not my personal point of view.
Okay, no.
But I'm siding to it because I understand it.
Okay. But it's wrong though.
It's not wrong. I think it's due to your family household, how you're built. You know what I'm saying?
Would you hug and love to your kids? You love them and that?
Yeah.
There you go then. So you don't agree with your point of view?
No, but I can understand it.
Okay, yeah, true. I understand it as well. I'm just saying, I understand fully. Like, you know,
see, my mum, she's got like seven sisters, one brother. Mm-hmm. You know, they're from like when my grandparents came from Jamaica in that era, like this was 60s, 70s, and that.
Yeah.
And they were disciplined. Mm-hmm. Like hot, you know. But as they're older, they kind of appreciate and like where that discipline has kind of brought them. Yeah. And they understand why it was needed and all that kind of stuff. So when you say, "Oh, nowadays we're soft," I can kind of understand what you're talking about. Because nowadays, you see what I mean? Because even though you're saying, "Oh, kids are disciplined too harshly nowadays," my mum and her sisters have been through it.
Yeah. Just because they've been through it doesn't mean it's right.
No, but I'm just trying to kind of show the differences in generation to say it's not necessarily that discipline is a bad thing. Yeah. Obviously, there's a border you can't cross and that kind of thing. Yeah. But maybe it's a different. You know, when we say this generation is a bit soft, maybe this generation is a bit coddled a bit. They got everything pushed out to them,
But you know what the thing is? The good thing about having a mother and a father is that there's balance. Yeah. So obviously your father would initially give you somewhat discipline with a bit of emotional, you know, whatever, but not as much as your mother would. Mm-hmm. But then you have the balance, innit? Yeah. I mean, if they're both lovey-dovey,
good cop, bad cop kind of thing.
Yeah, like it wouldn't work. If they're both cold, it's even worse. Yeah. So there's the balance.
Yeah, I think balance is definitely key. Yeah. But I guess it's understanding, like I said, going back to that point in terms of those who are parenting because of fear. Yeah. Even now, my daughter's about to turn 13. And I was about to ask what you got. Yeah. And so some of her replies.
13?
Yeah.
I was just going to say.
My eldest.
How old are you? No. Okay. Alright.
I'm 36. I'm 36.
36.
And matter of fact, this book is dedicated to your daughter, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a message. There's a nice message in the beginning.
Yeah. So I've got 3 girls.
Got 3 girls. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're married as well, yeah?
Yeah.
Good man, you know.
So what was the last one dedicated to?
We all need
daughters as well?
black daddies like Emeka out here. Like, I'm joking. But
he's representing, man.
Because I know we've kind of like gone into the topic about parenting and stuff, yeah. But I think one thing I would like to do, because obviously you spoke about your previous books, right? Mm-hmm. And you've kind of summarized all the previous books. Yeah. But you haven't, because the whole podcast is about this book right here. Yeah. I don't know if you man know what the book's about yet. Do you man know? Can you break down for people who have not read the book what this book's actually about? Okay.
So the title of the book is Ikenna. So that's one of the main character's names. So like I said, his name means strength of a father. So he had a dysfunctional relationship with his own dad. So he's a teenager himself, and his dad is just re-entering his life. So his dad's trying to now rebuild his relationship with his son. His son's going through whatever he's going through in terms of his personal life and school and so on and so forth. And I think the mum's just had enough, essentially. Yeah. And at the same time, his dad, Toby, is also trying to sort of rebuild his relationship with his own father.
Yeah.
Back in Nigeria, who has sort of dementia. And so that sort of throws a spanner in the works in terms of trying to really root out the problem that they had within themselves. And then it sort of takes you on a journey of sort of that sort of relationship building process. And then obviously you now started adding the subplots and all the things that happen sort of behind the scenes within the family structure, especially when they get to Nigeria. And so it just takes you on a story and a journey from that point of view.